In the 4 weeks of Regulation MB, it's pretty clear that Charizard Y has kind of just taken over the game. MB added a bunch of steel types, and adding Swampert into the game kinda just made Sun a lot stronger, because it's also able to fight off Rain. Hell, now they're kinda just using Sun and Rain together, if you look at teams in the Grand Champions Festival. But there's another Fire-type Mega that's been really benefiting from the MB changes, and that is Mega Delphox. Mega Delphox is considered by many to be a top 5 Mega in the format. It's been able to distinguish itself from Charizard by having a Psychic Stab and the ability Levitate instead of Drought. Small editing note, but I forgot to add that Delphox's stats are actually really strong as it Megas. Mainly its special attack and its speed stat, because it just about outspeeds everything in the game that isn't a Choice Scarf or a Dragon Bolt or Mega Aerodactyl. Not having Drought seems like a downside, but it actually led Delphox to be able to have a niche on more balanced teams. Notably with Blastoise or Floette, and mons like Sinistcha and Kingambit who don't appreciate the Sun very much, but still appreciate having a Fire type on their team. So much so that when the Grand Champions Festival happened this weekend, I decided to take this team on a roll. Those who are in the know might notice this team and realize that this is Justin Tang's team, and for one, yes, it is, he actually gave it to me. I think there's personally nothing wrong with that. The most important skill in Pokemon is actually piloting the team. Today I'm showcasing a team that's a little bit more meta than my usual type of content. So if you do like that, I really would appreciate if you like, comment, and subscribe. Anyways, enjoy the show. Alright, we're back at it again today with voiceovers, like I did. I saw that you guys enjoyed it with the Valplume video, so I figured I would do it this time. Now, after seeing this intro, you might have astutely observed that, wait, this team is horrible into Rain, because I have 3 ground weaknesses and 2 water weaknesses, so Swampert kind of just rolls us, right? Well, not exactly, actually. And that has to... and part of that reason is because of Kingambit. Now, we're gonna see right here, I just go and lead Incineroar Kingambit, because the majority of the time, a Rain team will look at this team and look at leading Swampert and Pelipper. Kind of just go crazy, guns blazing immediately. Which you can play again, which you can play around with in Sinistcha. Now, like I said, there's 3. Naturally, it's not like a insanely easy matchup, but it is still a pretty good one. They lead for this game. They lead Pelipper and Basculegion, which is actually even better for me. Because the strategy I'm about to do is the strategy I always do into Raid, where I just fake out the Pelipper and click Swords Dance immediately. Now, if this was Swampert, they would immediately Earthquake. Now, they just switched out Basculegion. In hindsight, I could have clicked Kowtow Cleave just to capitalize off it, but getting the Swords Dance is super important, as you're gonna see very quickly. Even if he protects the Pelipper, that's completely fine. The idea is to break the Focus Sash, but if not, it's still whatever. I get my Swords Dance up. So, and our Kingambit is fully healthy, which is a big difference from usual matchups versus Rain. Where the Rain matchup, like I was saying, will usually be Pelipper Swampert, and they will immediately lead Peli and then Earthquake with the Swampert just to get damage on the board. Which, for one, both of my Dark types that you saw on the screen survive it, even though they're weak to ground because of the Fire and Steel types. So Mega Swampert evolves right here, but that's not super important. I protect Kingambit. They click Earthquake. That's completely fine. that should actually just kind of dud into the Sinisha. It doesn't do that much. And Pelipper goes for Weather Ball into King Gambit, which is fair. So at this point, even though there's a Swampert on the field, I'm feeling pretty comfortable. If the Pelipper wants to hit my Sinisha with a Hurricane, it will have to pass through the Sucker Punch minigame next to it. That's how the King Gambit is named. And if not, I get a free Matcha Gotcha. If the Pelipper clicks Tailwind, which is something that they might do in other types of teams, but honestly, that would be a throw against my team, because the majority of the mons that I bring when it comes to fighting Rain are already slower than Swampert in Rain. So it's not like it's giving that much leverage to click Tailwind, other than dodging a Sucker Punch turn once. But in that case, I can also just click Trick Room, right? So yeah, Matcha goes into Disable Eye as it switches out, which is which is completely fine. In fact, I think I'm safe to just bring back the Incineroar, even though the Hurricane might be coming in. But I think at this point I just click Floette, because if Pelipper wants to do damage, it has to get Sucker Punched. In that case, I actually think it's not going to do damage. I think it's going to just try to protect from the Sucker Punch. Light Screen comes in. By protect from Sucker Punch, I mean like clicking a move like Tailwind, which he does right now. And this immediately puts a lot of pressure into them, because I just click Kowtow, bring them down to Sash. Floette gets in for free after they clicked Light Screen, which is surprising. I feel like they should have clicked Reflect first. So at this point, I kind of just bring Floette, click Mega, and Pelipper either has to switch out or has to protect if it doesn't want to get hit by another Sucker Punch. And my Floette is just not threatened by the Sableye in the slightest. So yeah, they protect, and then they click Reflect, which is about right. The Sucker Punch goes in, fails, it doesn't matter, because I still get leverage into this game as I click a Moonblast into the Sableye to get rid of it. So at this point, the rain stops as well, which is really nice. So at this point, I make a call. He has to switch out Pelipper if he wants Swampert to win the game for him. So I just switch out my own Floette and then immediately do damage. I click Kowtow into one of these two, which I think in this case I went for I went for Pelipper, which is fine, because that's a really strong hit into Swampert as it switches in. And we then immediately bring our own Incineroar, which is great, because that means both of these targets are at -1. The Basculegion clicks Aqua Jet. If I remember correctly from this team, that Basculegion is Choice Scarf? I may be remembering wrong, but I click Kowtow into it for really strong damage. And then I just fake out the Swampert, click Kowtow into the Basculegion slot, because it's gonna switch out either way. And at worst, at best, it doesn't switch out and then gets hit. But right now, getting rid of the Pelipper is also, like, pretty nice. So, Fake Out goes into the Swampert, that's great. Kowtow goes into the Pelipper, that gets rid of it. And now the game is essentially over, right? Basculegion gets sent back, which is nice, because then I just bring my own Sinisha, get a Protect. I can take as much time as I want, especially because this is a Choice Scarf Basculegion. So if it wants to do anything, it has to lock itself into a move. Swampert clicks Protect, that's whatever. I click Protect, kind of just for scouting. And he clicks Aqua-Jet. So Aqua-Jet is not very annoying, because then I get to just click. I believe in this case I just bring back Incineroar just to really lower it down. And I get to click Kowtow into Basculegion because it's Scarf, and a Aqua-Jet plus the Swampert being -2 means that King Gambit is pretty safe in this matchup right now. The Aqua-Jet comes in, doesn't do that much, even through the rain. He clicks Ice Punch into Incineroar, probably trying to get rid of the Sinistra. But even if he clicked like Wave Crash or some shit, and I lose my Incineroar, that's completely fine. If he clicks Earthquake here, that's also fine because I survive it. The Reflect goes off, and at that point I kind of just take my time, probably even like get another Swords Dance in just to make sure, get a Fake Out. Stall out the rain turns because that Swampert doesn't need the extra damage, right? The Swampert's at -2, but again, it could crit, so I'm not taking any chances. I'm getting my Swords Dance up, and at that point, I think I just decide to just bring back Sinistra and then Protect. Honestly, you shouldn't be doing this, because at this point, like, you're at the end of the game, you might as well just take it out, right? But I just felt like adding some salt in the wound. I don't know why, it just felt like it would be funny, I don't know. Earthquake goes in, does pretty minimal damage to Sinistra. Literally, that's like, what, 2% or something like that? Maybe more than that. And then we just click Matcha and then Sucker Punch just to end the game. You can either attack or get hit by the Matcha. And that is how I usually beat Swampert Rain. Like I said before the match, even though I have like 3 mods make to Swampert, I was able to make it pretty useless in this match. So it's time to move on to the next one. So, this matchup is a little bit more like I was talking about with the lead with the Swampert and Pelipper, because that is what they, spoiler alert, that is what they end up doing in this game. But this team is also different as it has Farigiraf and a Trick Room mode with Torkoal and Mega Mawile. So, but honestly, even with the addition of Farigiraf and Mawile, the game plan stays mainly the same. But I will tell you after, like, other ways that you could play around it. They lead Swampert and Pelipper, which is completely fine. I lead my Incineroar King Gambit, which, this is actually a game 2 in this context, so I'm just leading the same way. They just changed their lead completely. They started the game, they started the round with their Trick Room mode, so they kind of just want to go for the kill now. Because the Trick Room mode didn't work earlier, because I played around it, which, let me know if you want to see like a full video of all my games in the GCF, because I think this could be interesting. But yeah, Swampert clicks Earthquake, doesn't do half the King Gambit. That is what I'm talking about when I say that Swampert is not really scary for the King Gambit. The only thing that could stop it, really, is if they critted. And in that case, I mean, yeah, they critical hit. That's just how the game goes sometimes. There's not much I can do there. But yeah, like I said, Fake Out, set up Swords Dance. He clicks Earthquake, again, didn't do that much. Pelipper, not very threatening in the moment. But again, if it were, then I would just click Sucker Punch into it. Sometimes, in this situation I click Protect on King Gambit, but sometimes you can also just immediately Sucker Punch the Farigiraf. I just played it a tiny bit more safely because he has Farigiraf in the back, which I am trying to just bait out because the Swampert is doing no damage. And this is a Weather Ball into it, which, usually a rain team will see the Incineroar in front of them and just try to Weather Ball it because it's very annoying to the Swampert. So, we go Sucker Punch, and if they don't respect the Sucker Punch, they just lose their Pelipper immediately. And if they do, well, I get free damage into it. He switches in Torkoal over Swampert. I'm not completely sure about this play. I think he wanted to get a Fire-type Weather Ball going, but obviously the Sucker Punch kind of just gets rid of that completely, as Sinistra is free to just Matcha Gotcha, which was supposed to go into the Swampert, so it's not like... but it's not like I will say no to free damage. He switches in Farigiraf at this point, which at this point is a little bit too little too late, because Trick Room is not set for them. This Torkoal is very threatened. And my plan is to try and reverse the Trick Room as they click Trick Room as well, because, yeah, I mean, there's a Torkoal on the field, there's a Farigiraf on the field, and it clicks Helping Hand, which is actually great for me, because with the Swords Dance boost and a Kowtow, I kind of just get rid of Torkoal, as you can see right here. I'm not sure why he did that. I think I would have, if I was in his shoes, I would have clicked Protect and then Trick Room. But I think he saw that play as well happening and thought that the King Gambit would just go into the Farigiraf, which is fair, I suppose. Especially because, but because the Torkoal is so threatening, I just went for it instead. So Incineroar comes back because I need that Intimidate. Especially because a neutral Intimidate, like, we take a -1 Intimidate just fine, but a neutral Intimidate is still a hit that I don't want to take usually. But at this point, for them, it's pretty much too little too late. Trick Room is set up, which is great. I get to just click Kowtow before, and just get rid of the Farigiraf right there. They didn't have Protect on this one, so that was kind of just a free hit for me. They click Earthquake, which does a pretty solid chunk to both of them. A little bit more than I'm comfortable taking. And then I just click Fake Out and then Swords Dance, because after a Swords Dance at +4, the Kowtow Cleave and the Sucker Punch are both guaranteed 1-hit KOs. Normally, the Sucker Punch would be a chance to 2-hit KO, assuming this is like a non-bulky, fast Swampert, which is the standard, but it will KO after a Fake Out. In this case, however, because I got the +4, everything that I use on the King Gambit will KO, and at this point I kind of just get rid of the Swampert. So again, another example of rain teams not being too much of an issue for this team, assuming you play correctly. Other ways you can play around this if you're too scared of leading the King Gambit and Incineroar, or you find it to be too predictable, is you can just lead Incineroar and then Floette, and then fake out the Swampert, and get a free Calm Mind with that. Even if the Pelipper clicks... Even if Pelipper clicks Tailwind at this point, or like Weather Balls into the Incineroar, this should still be a fine turn. And then you have in the back Sinistra and the King Gambit anyway, so you can still go for a Swords Dance setup if you need it. But anyways, I think we're done with the rain for now, so we're gonna move into Charizard. Okay, so for a bit of context for this game, on game 1 I didn't play my best. I leaned too much into Floette, which ended up not playing super well into Charizard. And on game 2 I played a little better, as I was able to get to an endgame where King Gambit kind of just won by playing a long Sucker Punch minigame. So I figured that for Game 3, this would be a Delphox game. Now, you might see this and think that this sounds insane. They have Aerodactyl and they have Garchomp, but even though Floette wasn't doing super well, it did its role as exactly as I wanted it, because what it did is make sure to put a seed of doubt in my opponent and make them think that I was bringing Floette, meaning that they should not be bringing the Garchomp. This opened up a passage for Delphox to be really good, as you will see in a moment. But even so, like, leading into this type of Marco Silva team, I would still just bring Delphox in this scenario, but probably more in the back, as you will see right now. So, at the start of this game, as the game begins right now, I click Parting Shot into the Farigiraf, which is a bit of a mess up, as you will see in a moment, because that Farigiraf has Helping Hand, which they should be using on the Incineroar. I knew they had Helping Hand, but I didn't think he was just going to start by immediately using it. In the second game, he just started by clicking Fake Out. So I would have likely survived it if I Parting Shotted the Incineroar instead, but I didn't think he was just gonna go for the big play, and now this is me just realizing my mistake in the middle of this as I pick Sneasler. He clicks the Flare Blitz into the King Gambit, which gets rid of it despite it being -1 because of the Helping Hand, which sucks, but it puts Sneasler and now Delphox into a prime position, because now the Incineroar, which is easily like their best counter to my Delphox, is in prime close combat range, and I get to just click Nasty Plot with the Delphox, kind of just get a setup for free, and if he brings in Charizard and Megas into Sun, I get another bonus for free, which is the Sun itself. So in this moment, the Incineroar is kind of pinned, it has to switch out. In that case, I could have clicked Dire Claw, but I think clicking Close Combat there is still fine, just in case that it doesn't switch out. But if you're in this position and you feel like you know for sure that they're going to switch out, you might as well click Dire Claw there, because that will do more damage to the Charizard, and there's a chance that you might get the paralysis or the sleep, which is always nice. So I click Nasty Plot with Delphox. Kind of set up to win right there, even though this is gonna look really bad because the Farigiraf clicks Trick Room here. Close Combat does decent damage as the Trick Room gets set up. At this point, Sneasler has to get out of here. I get my Incineroar because that's a fire resist, and the only two moves that this Farigiraf has, I believe, were Psychic and Hyper Voice, and I'm not super scared of Hyper Voice, so at this point it kind of just becomes a game of stalling the Trick Room out, which is not that difficult if you play it correctly. But as you're gonna find out, this game is gonna take a solid bit, because honestly, this was one of the more intense set I had this weekend. Alright, so Sneasler switches out as we break the Incineroar. Get the Intimidate, that doesn't matter too much. And Charizard clicks Mega, which is great for me because I have a Nasty Plot boost, and now I have Sun, so my Heat Waves, when I get to click them, like, pretty soon, are about to really hurt. Psychic goes into Incineroar thinking it was Sneasler. The Heat Wave comes in, doesn't do too much. Yeah, it's still not too much. It's still like a decent chunk considering that this is Charizard, but like, not too much. I can Parting Shot the Charizard because I should live a neutral Heat Wave. I say neutral here because just in case that they Helping Hand here, this would pretty much offset the Parting Shot -1. But Delphox should live a neutral Heat Wave and Sun pretty easily, maybe even 2 if I remember correctly. Because it's not like it's super fragile, because I have a little bit of investment. But either way, they switch out Incineroar and protect the Frigoraph, which is great because I still get to click Parting Shot into the Incineroar, which will be extremely important because that guy can always just click Throat Chop into my Delphox, which would pretty much be really awful. I get my Heat Wave off. It does a pretty sizable chunk of damage into the Incineroar, but then again, it's at like +2 with the Nasty Plot, so it should be a given. At that point, I realized that there's only 2 turns of Trick Room left, so I kind of just click Protect, bring the Incineroar back, because putting their opposing Incineroar at -2 is pretty much mandatory, especially because they get to click Helping Hand otherwise. So that's what we're going to see as they pick their moves. Right, so Sneasler switches out, and at this point I kind of just make sure to conserve my Focus Sash on the Sneasler, just in case, because the Farigiraf always has Psychic, Charizard can hit a really strong hit. I get my Protect into the Delphox, which is great. And now, the plan now is to get rid of both of them. This is the last turn of Trick Room. That Farigiraf just recently clicked Helping Hand. There's a chance that he clicks Helping Hand again. If he clicks if he clicks Protect here, this is somewhat fine, but yeah, there goes the Helping Hand. His plan now is to try to kill the Delphox, just completely get rid of it. But we survive because of the -2 attack, because of our Intimidate and Parting Shot. The Throat Chop goes into the Farigiraf, does a really good chunk of damage, removes the Citrus Berry, which is quite nice. Delphox, though, kind of just finishes it off pretty easily, which is great. And in this prime moment, the dimensions return to normal, and we are back in normal speed. So Delphox should be the fastest thing around. So they have Charizard, and their last is Aerodactyl. Now this situation is kind of a 50-50. Like, there's nothing else, there's not much to talk about here. It's always like a 50-50 because I can Protect to stall out the Sun, but if I do this, they get to click Tailwind. But if I don't Protect, and their Charizard does Protect, there is a chance that I just die to Rock Slide. And not even a chance. At this point, it's pretty much guaranteed that I fade to Rock Slide with my Delphox because it's so low at the moment. But I make the call that because Sun is up for one last turn, that Charizard wants to make a big hit, which is great because I get the call right. The Side Shot goes into the Charizard, gets rid of it, as you can see. Rock Slide goes in, which is what I was thinking would happen. But at this point, Delphox has pretty much done its job. As long as the Incineroar gets the Parting Shot off, this is a good situation, which he does, because Incineroar is just goated and we don't flinch. Sneasler comes back in as the sun sets, There we go. And Incineroar comes back into the game. That Aerodactyl is now at -2, and I am just free to click Close Combat into Fake Out. And that is pretty much the game, because I got this final read correctly. But honestly, knowing that that situation went, I could have also probably clicked Heat Wave. I just wanted to really guarantee that the Charizard was going to fight this turn. Which, if he protected, yes, that would have probably been a throw. But in the end, it was essentially a 50-50. And I was right. So there goes his Aerodactyl, as it can't do anything. And I move on to the next round. And we're gonna move to the next game. Alright, so we're back here in a different game against a different Charizard team, but a similar situation as it is Game 3 as well. And at this point, similar stuff has happened to the previous game, but except that I didn't really bring the Floette at all, and you'll see why in a moment. But at this point, I kind of just decided, screw this. In the last 2 games, they brought Sylveon and Charizard, so I'm just sick of this Sylveon. So I'm leading both of my fire types into this lead, which is honestly, like, completely fine for 2 reasons. Number one, in this game, my opponent had a team sheet error. It actually had 2. Number one is the Garchomp is Sandville, and the other is that their Kingambit is Iron Defense. So at this point, they just lead Garchomp and Charizard. Now, Charizard is not an issue for Delphox, so we get to just fake out the Garchomp as we click our Nasty Plot just for completely free. Which is honestly the best case scenario, especially because, well, first of all, I got fortunate enough that my opponent made an error, and this was supposed to be Rough Skin, but it was actually Sandville, and so, yeah. So, I'm not punished for clicking Fake Out, which is great. So, his Garchomp protects, which is honestly completely fine. We click Fake Out. That goes into Protect. Doesn't do that much. And we get our Nasty Plot on Delphox. Now, you may see this and think that this is great, but there is one part of it that is slightly annoying, and that is the Whimsicott. Now, Whimsicott gets Encore. That is very annoying, especially if you're playing like a setup mod like Delphox right there. So at that point I just like Protect, and the plan is to just get rid of this Whimsicott. It clicks Moonblast into Incineroar. I'm not completely sure why. I think I tried to call my Protect, which is fair, and is trying to get rid of the Incineroar by clicking Earthquake. So, this specific Garchomp doesn't have Stomping Tantrum. It has Rock Slide, Dragon Claw, and Earthquake, which is more standard, but because it doesn't have Stomping Tantrum, it has to click Earthquake if it wants to do significant damage to the Incineroar, which is quite lucky for me, because that means that Whimsicott takes damage, and my Delphox is essentially free to just spam moves as it wants, because now it's at +2. I think if I were my opponent, I would have clicked Rock Slide anyway, just because there's a chance of flinching for one, and for another it actually can hit Delphox. So in this scenario, I get to just click Heat Wave like crazy. And I switch out my Incineroar, mainly because I want to be able to reset the Intimidates later, because I was thinking that Garchomp would switch out, but it doesn't, surprisingly. And the Charizard doesn't even capitalize from it, which is awesome, because I get to click that Heat Wave for completely free. I think he didn't Mega here because he thought that the Delphox would probably not, would capitalize off it, which it did by clicking Heat Wave. I'm not sure why he did Mega, actually. I feel like in his best case scenario, he clicks Heat Wave and Rock Slide. I wish I could have asked him, but after that game, I kind of just was like little in a hurry, so I didn't really have the opportunity to talk to them afterwards. So, with the Charizard on the field, not clicking Mega just yet, and if it it's in a position where if it clicks Mega, the Garchomp essentially fades to Heat Wave. Like, it does way too much damage at this point. That thing is knocked out, and we do like a very solid chunk into the Charizard anyway, because we are at +2, and the sun will be coming up. So they click the Mega button anyway, because, I mean, realistically, what else will you do with your Charizard? You kind of just have to, like, go for big damage, which is completely fair. I click Protect here because I fully expected the Garchomp to just hit me again, but he kind of just clicks Protect. And he clicks Weather Ball, actually, which is actually very good for me, because now I just get to click Fake Out, or even Parting Shot, but in this case Fake Out, and then like click a solid Psyshock into the Garchomp just to really make sure it goes down. Although I think in this scenario I click Heat Wave anyway, because I just want damage on the Charizard. And just in case that they switch in the King Gambit, that Psyshock is not turning into nothing. So Garchomp goes down, Charizard takes a massive chunk of damage because of we're in +2 and we are in Sun. That Delphox is doing ridiculous damage, as you can see. And I believe in this case they bringing Sylveon. Yeah, Sylveon. So honestly, I'm not sure why they did. But I know why they did, because in Game 2 Sylveon, I didn't respect it, and kind of just lost because of that. But in this game, because I have the Delphox now, the Sylveon is kind of in trouble. I get to click Protect here. I think I'm thinking realistically, there's a chance that it does enough damage. I want my Hospitality up. Charizard clicks Heat Wave, that's fine. It crits, that's annoying. And at this point, I'm thinking maybe a Heat Wave and a Hyper Beam would be enough to take out the Delphox, but he clicks Hyper Voice anyway. So I just bring back Incineroar. Now, the reason I do that is twofold. For one, this Incineroar is faster than the Sylveon, and having Intimidate up means that my opponent can't really click Quick Attack, which it could have done into the Incineroar for like a decent chunk and probably taking it out. So at this point, Delphox is kind of just free to do whatever it wants. I think I click Heat Wave in this scenario. He just protects on both of his mons, which is fair. Instead goes for the Fake Out, that's fine. And I go for Psyshock, trying to get rid of the Charizard. We saw in the previous game that Psyshock would KO either way, so it's not like I'm too worried about the Charizard. I just want to get rid of it because it is threatening to my King Gambit in the back. And the Sylveon isn't really poised to get rid of my Delphox anymore, especially because of the Hospitality. And Zero goes for the Flare Blitz either way, brings it down to 1%, which is really surprising. I didn't think it was gonna do this much. And he clicks Hyper Voice. Decent damage. Makes me wonder if Hyper Beam would have done like a crazy amount. But either way, at this point this is practically the end. I have King Gambit in the back, and it's just it's just pretty much a Delphox win. So we're gonna go to the next one very quickly. Alright, so this matchup is the mirror matchup, but with the caveat that they've replaced their Mega Delphox with a Choice Scarf Garchomp. So, how I would usually play a mirror matchup is I try to capitalize on the pieces that I have that are different than my opponent. For example, when I play like a certain team, like the only thing that comes to mind was in Scarlet Violet when I was playing with Raging Bolt. My Raging Bolt was specifically different in the way that it was Life Orb and Thunderbolt as opposed to a Calm Mindset. So when I play games like a mirror matchup, I usually try to capitalize on the mons that I have that they do not. In this case, this is Delphox. And because they don't have Delphox, they lead Floet and Incineroar, which I counterpick with Sneasler and Delphox. So I have the faster fake out, so immediately this is great. And I get to click Nasty Plot on Delphox, which is kind of just going to take the game over. This isn't always going to work, by the way, but in this circumstances it actually did, because I played with Mega Delphox in mind, being able to crush everything. So Sneasler gets Poison Touch. That doesn't super matter, but it's still very nice to have. I get to click Nasty Plot. I think they possibly clicked Darkest Lariat in this situation, but of course they got faked out, so that is a non-issue anymore. And I just bring my own Incineroar, and my Delphox wants to scout what their Garchomp is doing. So I click Protect, which is nice. I get rid of... Yeah, I get to scout what the Garchomp does, and it is, once again, it's Choice Scarf, so it's not doing as much damage as I've seen the entire day. But even then, having the -1 is nice. And knowing now that this is Rock Slide, I get to play around it. So, in this case, I could have just clicked Fake Out into the Garchomp just to really get rid of it. And I'm not super threatened by the Incineroar, even though it has Darkest Lariat, because we already saw that I live -2 with a Helping Hand earlier. I should be able to live -1 without the Helping Hand. We get a crit on Incineroar. Doesn't super matter, but it's still also really nice to have. He clicks Parting Shot into my Delphox, which is mildly annoying, but isn't the end of the world, right? So, Floet comes in, as it does, and I get to click Parting Shot with Incineroar. That Garchomp is locked into Rock Slide, so the plan here, I believe, is I'm just gonna Heat Wave anyway, because a Rock Slide at -1 isn't going to KO me. I actually think I'm actually like debating a couple options when it comes to that game, but I just click Heat Wave anyway, like I said. I didn't completely remember this part, but I remember here clicking Heat Wave because of what happens next. So, Floet clicks his Mega, Rock Slide comes in, and hopefully it doesn't flinch. and it does, which is unfortunate. But the Floette clicks Dazzling Gleam, which I survive surprisingly. Surprisingly, I survive on Incineroar. On Delphox, I knew I was going to, but the Incineroar is kind of built with special defense in mind, so it's not like I didn't think it wasn't going to survive. Although, to be honest, I also partially did. At this point, I'm also debating what to do with this Garchomp, because I just bring Sneasler in. They have a Floette. I can click Fake Out if I want to. That Garchomp I'm looking over is at -1. I look over my Delphox, I'm at +1. I can do some pretty decent damage, so I decide I click Fake Out and just Heat Wave again as he switches out into the Incineroar, which at this point should go down if I remember correctly. He protects the Floette, which is great, honestly. No notes here. My Fake Out goes into Incineroar, which is like... it's better than going into Garchomp, that's for sure, because of the rough skin over here. Heat Wave goes into Incineroar, and then it dies to its poison, which is fortunate, like I said. But it, again, doesn't matter that much. I think the next turn, I get to click like Quick Guard or Protect, and then stop the Fake Out, click Heat Wave again, and then it's like, yeah, there's no Incineroar anymore. He maybe clicks Dazzling Gleam into with Floette, but it doesn't, like, pick up the KO on Delphox. This is a scenario where Quick Guard is surprisingly an effective move, which is, that Sneasler can always just click Fake Out. It doesn't in this scenario, but it's not like it matters too much. At this point, Delphox did exactly what I wanted it to do. Like, it did a solid chunk into everything. That Floette is Drain Kiss. It's not even Moonblast. That is actually why, now I remember, that is actually why I wasn't super threatened by the Floette. And now we bring in the King Gambit. So at this range, it's absolutely certain that the Sneasler on the opponent side faints to Sucker Punch. So I kind of played it expecting he was going to switch out, but even then, if he does switch out, I click Dire Claw into the Floette, which is pretty safe. He doesn't switch out, which is surprising. I think he was expecting like some Protect, or I don't know what he was thinking at this point. I click Dire Claw, goes into the Floette, pretty solid hit all things considered, even though it's at -1. He clicks Calm Mind. I think his idea was he thought I was going to Sucker Punch his Floette and not the Sneasler, and try to have my Sneasler outspeed and KO his, which I'm not sure why. Either that or he sacrificed the Sneasler to bring in Garchomp for free, which is somewhat fair, but because this Garchomp is Choice Scarf, I just get to Sucker Punch it again, which at around half as what it is because of the Delphox damage that we did earlier, it just goes down. And then Dire Claw kind of just finishes out the Floette, and that is essentially game. So, yeah, that was just the mirror matchup. So, anyways, thank you all for watching. I'm gonna get some water. But, no, I will see you in the next one. Just kidding, we're back. I wanted to also showcase Game 2, because I also played this one a little bit differently. At that point, I have made my statement that Delphox was going to be in the game and kind of just crush everything. So for Game 2, I decided to mix it up a little bit, because I just wanted to show, you don't really need Delphox to fight this particular matchup. In fact, I would say that outside of this game that I played right there, usually Delphox is not a mod that I would bring into a Scarf Garchomp and like other matchups like this. So in this game, I just bring Sinisha instead and have my King Gambit kind of just take over the game instead. Or at least that's the plan. He leads Garchomp and Incineroar. I lead my own Sneasler and King Gambit, which is a pretty standard lead in general. This is a type of lead that I would pick if I don't know what lead to bring. Just Sneasler King Gambit kind of just covers a lot of things. So the plan is, at this point, I believe I just switch out immediately into Incineroar and then get a Protect, as I am trying to bait out a certain move from Garchomp. And again, because it is Choice Scarf instead of Life Orb, it should not do that much damage into the King Gambit. Either way, he clicks Earthquake immediately, which is really surprising considering he has Incineroar on the field, and it crits my Incineroar. That's unfortunate, and it kind of sucks, but even so, first of all, the fact that he did so much damage to his Incineroar too is really nice. That is damage that I won't need to do. And then I bring something like this shown in the back, and just to be able to get heal. And just kidding, I'm actually gonna bring Sneasler. So, by doing so, I have an immediate hit on Incineroar, which is awesome. And the Garchomp doesn't threaten my King Gambit too much because it's at -1, and once again, it's not Life Orb. So its damage into King Gambit is gonna be pretty workable. I think I clicked Dire Claw into the Incineroar thinking that he switches into Floette, which, to my surprise, he actually does. He brings Floette in immediately, clicks Earthquake, does damage to his own Floette. My King Gambit survives pretty comfortably. It crits my Sneasler, which doesn't super matter because I have Focus Sash. And with Dire Claw, that is Floette getting instantly removed from the game, which is an immediate positive because I get to click Swords Dance. And at this point, a +3 Sucker Punch KOs effectively everything on his team. Even better yet, a +4 right now because of the Defiant. So, I have Sinisha. Now I get to bring it because it's pretty safe, and I'm expecting the Garchomp to switch out at this point. So I just protect in my with my King Gambit as he brings his own King Gambit, which sucks a little bit for the. It sucks a little bit for the Sinisha. However, because he critted my Incineroar and it fainted, that means that King Gambit cannot have a Defiant boost. And spoiler alert for this one, this King Gambit is Iron Head and not Swords Dance. So that damage is gonna stay the same for the entire match. So, knowing this information, I'm pretty sure. I'm debating at this point clicking either Rage Powder or Trick Room. I go with Rage Powder because I don't very need too much my Sinisha, because I get to just like hit everything. The Flare Blitz goes into Sinisha, does a solid chunk, all things considered. But now this Incineroar is in range of a +4 Countdown Cleave, and it goes down like just about immediately. His King Gambit clicks Countdown Cleave just to get rid of the Sinisha. That's fair. And my Sinisha goes down, having accomplished what I wanted it to do, honestly. as my King Gambit is now an unstoppable monster that is just going to wreck everything, starting with this Garchomp. So, I have Fake Out Pressure again, so I get to just click that into their King Gambit, and with a +4, nice screenshot, with a +4 Sucker Punch, this immediately should get rid of their Garchomp, barred like the bulkiest Garchomp alive, but even then I don't think that's even possible. Garchomp goes down, we take a little bit of rough skin damage, that's okay. All things considered. This King Gambit flinches, and at that point, I kind of just am allowed to do whatever I want. I'm debating either clicking Quick Guard to block an incoming Sucker Punch, or Close Combat just to get rid of the King Gambit. At that point, I just made the conscious decision that my Sneasler doesn't super need to be here, because that +4 King Gambit Countdown Cleave will just do way above a half like this. So, now that I'm in a position of victory, that I'm not threatened by a Sucker Punch or anything, it kind of just becomes whether or not his King Gambit can be faster, and click Iron Head, which it is not. So his King Gambit goes down. That crit didn't particularly matter, but it is pretty funny to happen. And it goes down, and I just win the game. So, now, this time, no fake outs. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one.